But for that week, I want my hair to look good.
Are you saying this is a lower tier
Second
event?
tier, yes,
Lower
yes,
tier, it's
Laurent,
lower tier,
yes,
isn't it?
yes, yeah.
For this is not important to have a haircut.
I
We are back. A couple of weeks ago, we ran an incredible event, panel discussion on how to scale the impact of design and design operations in 3D. We explored what it takes to affect change in your organization through the lenses and the principles of diligence, decision, and discipline. Today, we'll continue our journey into design leadership and operation. We're going to dig into the interplay between design leadership and design ops, how to set up high-performing design teams, how to collaborate between leadership and operations, what is design quality and how do you go about upholding it, the future of design, and more. Quick plug before we get into it. I've launched my training course on design operations on Maven. Next week, I'm running a free event exploring the 3D framework in more detail. I'll drop the link in the chat. But for now, let's introduce our panelists. So, our first panelist is a renowned design leader, speaker, problem solver, always sharing insights into UX and design leadership on her blog or at conferences, and here today on the panel. She's built design teams for big brands like Vodafone, Rightmove, UK tech unicorn Kazoo, now Global Director of UX at legal tech business Durham. But here's something you may not know about her. She's been up since 4:45 this morning to go to the gym. She collects frameworks like others collect sneakers. She organizes her phone apps by color. It's Venessa Bennett. Vanessa, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. I don't know if I sound interesting or a bit sad, but yeah, glad to be here and glad to be part of the panel.
How do you organize apps by color? So I do them by themes like finance or I don't know, work. Like, how, how does it work for you?
So I start with the yellows and then kind of work my way through the kind of color spectrum and end with blacks. I get very annoyed when brands rebrand or change because that means I need to like reorganize stuff. But it works for me and triggers a lot of people when they see my phone.
Right, right. Thank you very much for this. Our second panelist is a Design Ops giant. Honestly, the tallest person at the Design Ops conference in London last March. Previously at Miro, supporting a team of 45 designers. Previously at ServiceNow. Previously at Adaptive Path, which is like a badge of honor, really. He's helped plenty of organizations increase the chances of good design happening by setting up roadmaps, cross-functional team, and improving design processes and more. Spoke at more than 50 conferences, host of the Amsterdam UX Cocktail Hour since 2001, founder of a beer appreciation fraternity. There's definitely an alcohol-infused theme here. It's Peter Boersma. Hey Peter, what's your favorite cocktail?
yeah, I I guess like ice cream and coffee, the avocado doesn't count because there's no alcohol in it, but I like coffee, so this is my coffee t-shirt, and I have more coffee related clothes. So I would say Black Russian. Like if I order a cocktail in a bar, it's Black Russian.
Awesome, awesome. And our last panelist, 2 decades in the game, driving digital transformation across fintech, e-commerce, media, and energy. Most recently, Global VP of Design at ClearScore. Bless you. Bless
Thank
you
you.
again. Where she led the large-scale platform redesign and brand evolution, integrating scalable systems like a headless CMS and a new design system to deliver a new banging product to 24 million users across 5 countries. She's been powering and leading design organization at Farfetch, Kaluza, Hearst, and more, speaks regularly on design leadership, platform strategy, and how to build high-performing design teams. She organizes her shoes by color. It's Yolanda Martin Olivas.
Hello. Hi there.
Welcome to the panel. So let's dive straight in. We're going to build this in layers, starting in the foundation, and then we're going to ramp it up. Yolanda, let's start with you. You've led many design organizations at ClearScore, Kaluza, Farfetch. A few years ago, design ops emerged as a discipline. Talk to us about the first time you hired a design ops person or set up a design ops practice in an organization. What was the context? Why did you bring design ops into the mix? And as a design leader, what do you expect from design ops as a discipline or people practicing that when you set up
Uh,
teams?
yeah, I mean, it's been many years that I have had always design ops in my teams. The first time probably was at Hearst, because I was set up as design director for the three disciplines of design inside Hearst. So I had the commercial team who was doing marketing. I had the editorial team who was doing editorial design, and I had the platform team who were building the CMS and the platform to actually power those other two things. So they were very different design teams. And originally, before I arrived, they actually report to very different sides of the organization. So all the editorial designers were inside each one of the properties, and the marketing, the design team for commercial was under the marketing department, and they were very disjointed. And we wanted to bring everybody together to this new initiative and create a sense of unity, because we were creating a design system, and we wanted, although each property was very different, Cosmo and Elle and Good Housekeeping, they all design wise were very different, and their cultures were different. We wanted the discipline of design to be unified, and it's the first time that I hired design ops, mostly because I just wanted somebody to organize that culture and to bring the frameworks that help us speak the same language in terms of design outcomes and KPIs and OKRs for a team that had such a different, outputs for them. And it's when I understood the amazing power of design ops, because it was magical, right? From having three completely disjointed almost functions to having a conjoined function with generic topics, with things that we were all worried about, with joint OKRs and so on and so forth. So it makes a huge difference. And then when we joined with the US team and we started to work Europe and US teams together, it became even more important because culturally we were very different. The way of working of the European teams and the way of working of the American teams was very different. And the two areas of design ops started to talk to each other, and they were together the ones that started to put those frameworks around the rest of the team that allow 135 designers, researchers, content designers to actually work together and get MeOS delivered. And after that, I've had design operations in every, it's one of the things I put as a rule when I join any company. If you don't have design ops, that's the one thing I want. I'm not coming without it. So
yeah.
Awesome.
So it's the cultural aspect, bringing the teams together, having some disciplines around like shared OKRs and what we're trying to achieve as a design organization overall. Venessa, Yolanda talked about the US and the UK and bringing the culture. You global director of UX and Durham. What's the role of design ops in your organization? Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so even though we're quite a big company and quite global, the team is quite lean. So we've got a team in Australia and a team in UK, and we're covering as all of the kind of time zones. So my team has deliberately been structured for everyone to be generalists. So we're quite flat in organization, but that doesn't mean that design ops isn't important and it isn't part of our team. So I'm a big kind of advocate for kind of spreading knowledge across the team, especially because we're so lean. So we have one person who's in charge of design ops in the UK and one who's in charge of design ops in Australia as well. And they work together quite closely in the governance side of things, the ensuring that our design system is updated and it works for the team, and all the other stuff that goes behind it. So even though we don't have a dedicated design ops team, that role of design ops still remains. It's still an important part and parcel of what we do and the way we work.
Awesome, awesome. So for you, the focus is you have a couple of people overall in the global team. A lot of what they focus on is the governance and the design system. Really, really important for scaling the impact of design. Peter, you have helped many organizations harness the power of design operation excellence. How do you get into the field? How do you define the value that design operations bring to organization and design organizations?
So it's my theory that you have a gene in somewhere in your cells that says you like design ops or you're fit for design ops. Um, I know I have that gene. It's the gene is very close to whether you like to organize wikis or not. Um, I think they're related. I have that gene. When I was 12, I got a computer. I was making software and I was making tools to help me make software. I was doing design ops for me. The programs that I was making got published in print, so people could type over the code and use it on their computers. It was little old-fashioned computers. And the tools that I was making that made the game developers were my first foray into design ops. But yeah, that's sort of where it started, and I think I've always had it. Like professionally speaking, it started when I joined a company when a company I was at was bought by a larger company, and we had to align our ways of working. And we aligned our way of working. The benefit was that the reporting about the work was also aligned, so management was happy, and we got to work on templatizing deliverables, aligning processes, agreeing on when design starts and ends, and what roles other stakeholders play during the design process, or what roles we play in their processes. And this was in 2001 or something. So that's where it started. You asked, like, what kind of value do I see in design ops? And I think there's so many, and I hope that many people here recognize that of course, we can improve efficiency of designers. We can make them do things faster. We can make them more effective, have a bigger impact. We can keep retention of designers higher, and potentially retention of non-designers who are happy to work with efficient and effective designers. We can raise the quality of the work. We can set up review systems. We can build design systems. We can have project checks in place, making sure that the quality of design work and product development work goes up. All of that is made possible better through design ops.
Awesome, awesome. So a range of value that design operation can deliver.
Yeah.
One aspect you talk about is quality. Now, talk to us about what design quality is. How do you define it when we say we're gonna, improve the quality of design? What do we actually mean by that? It's a very murky concept. Sometimes we try and define it or put some measures on it. From your perspective, what is design quality?
Mm. So just like software, quality is often measured in terms of how many bugs does it contain. And design can contain bugs as well. And we call them just like bugs, and you can report them with the team, and they can be fixed. There can be debt, which is another thing that can be removed, raising the opportunities for quality. Because if you don't need to drag along bad stuff with you while you're trying to create something new, if that debt goes away, then you're more free to create new, better, faster designs. So it has comparisons to development, but there is the sort of the softer qualities of design quality aspects of design quality, that you can only call it bad quality if you've defined what good quality is, or what at least a baseline is. So a lot of the work in raising quality is first determining quality, and that means determining what we stand for. And what we stand for are, again, two different things. It's what we as a team stand for, the team of designers. What do we feel should be made? And then there's the product quality. The aspect of what is a good product, and that's not just determined by designers. That's the corporate strategy. Where do you want to play? Do you want to be like a low level has been, or no, also have like what is called like a player that's in the lower end of the top 10, or do you want to be the premium brand that's the triple A whatever? That determines also the product company wish for quality. So there's many aspects, but it starts with setting a baseline, and a baseline is what do you as designers feel should be made, and what does the company feel should be made, and then you can start finding ways to measure whether whatever you're producing is below or above quality.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. So defining quality and then finding a way of measuring it. So we have like a bar, and we can see whether what we ship is above that bar or below that bar.
Yeah. And that can be,
Vanessa,
sorry,
yeah,
the finding ways to measure it can be through bugs, can be through regular reviews, can be through customer feedback that you get. There are many ways to start collecting data that says we're at or below or above the bar.
yeah, yeah. Okay, okay. Vanessa, what's your perspective at Durham and at Kazoo? How did you go about upholding design quality? How do you think about it? Tell us a bit more about
Yeah, I definitely agree with Peter, right? You need to kind of define what design quality is, and then kind of have metrics that you can kind of identify how you're tracking and trending. How historically I've kind of done it is essentially you have OKRs attached to it, but it also needs design ops, I think needs to ladder up to the business objectives, right? So it's almost like, why does design ops exist in this company? Why do we need it? And what is the goal of design ops? And through that, you have different measures, OKRs that come through that. And like any other team in design or across the business, you report on those and you ladder those up, I would say. And I think we can talk about a baseline of quality, but that quality will change from company to company. So, it might be about bugs, but also quality might also be included in how consistent is the experience across the board, right? How do we also, we don't talk enough about QA, but how much has design system and design ops actually saved time in that QA kind of area, and engineering time? And all of those are metrics that can not actually just add to quality, but also talking the efficiency as well of design ops and what design ops is doing. So I think it's very important, especially in design ops being seen as kind of like a support function for design, to have those metrics and to report on those metrics regularly, and have something that's transparent. So have a dashboard or something that's transparent, so that people can see what design ops is doing and the impact. Because I think even though we call it design ops, it actually has an impact on a lot of teams across the business. And I don't think we talk about that enough.
Definitely, definitely. Design Ops is not just about design, it's about, powering the, entire organization and supporting the product organization. When the triad collaborate together, not everyone is called a designer, but they're all designing together, right? Yolanda, I know you have high expectation of quality. I know that when you join your organization, you often tasked with making sure that the quality is really, really high. How do you approach that job when you come in and you need to really elevate the quality of the work? What sort of, first of all, I guess, like, how do you assess it? What's your perspective on it? What do you put in place to try and keep the quality really high? You're on mute.
I'm so sorry. There was noise in the background. So first of all, you have to assess the quality of why the company thinks that maybe the quality is low. What has given them to think that, or to come to me in the first place to say, Yolanda, you need to fix the quality, right? I need to understand what do they see as quality and why that quality is being questioned. So once you understand what that understanding of the C-suite, the exec, the marketing team, whoever is putting that quality in question, where is it coming from? Is it because sometimes that quality is delivery? Is not so much the work in itself, the output itself, but the way it's being delivered. So there are delays, the communication is poor, I don't know, whatever there might be. That makes people, other teams or part of the organization think that design has no quality, is a part of like working practice. You can fix that in a particular way. If what happens is that the output is of low quality and you have done, or what I do sometimes, most times I do an audit and ask some of the IC designers or some external company to do an audit of design to see one of the basic variables of quality is consistency, right? And it's one that most companies break. You see apps, you see websites where layouts are all over the place, grids are all over the place, fonts are all over the place, and you wonder how is it that maybe in a site that has 5 sections, 2 of them have a different font or different size for fonts or different margin or different footer, or suddenly the color palette has gone awry, or it has 7 different pull-down menu designs, and so on and so forth. So that immediately, creating that audit, you can see where your consistency and the quality of your work has gone wrong. And talking about it every day, right, is a discipline. Quality is a discipline that needs to be enforced and talked about and shown and discussed on a daily basis. So having constant creates weekly meetings, monthly meetings where quality gets discussed. Look, guys, this that appears here is not okay. Or layouts or grids are all over the place are creating this situation. Or font, let's agree that, I don't know, title font is going to be 21. Let's just keep to it, right? And calling people that is no. So it depends very much on what type of quality we're talking about. But in every case, finding out first what quality of, what kind of quality is being pushed and questioning, then do an audit of that situation to see what is the level of, that needs to be fixed, and then put the processes in place to fix that problem is the right process. But talking about it and upholding it high and showing examples of it on a daily basis is what gets that quality slowly up.
Yeah. So what you're saying is it starts with mindset and setting high expectation, and then having it on the table and it's discussing it on a regular basis to make sure that you kind of like this expectation of quality spreads throughout the design organization.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, having set up what my previous, they have said, obviously we need OKRs, we need an understanding of what the quality level is required or what kind of quality we're talking about. All of that is necessary. But on top of that, you need a serious audit and a culture of quality and a conversation about quality on a regular basis. Definitely.
Okay. So sometimes the way I think about quality is structure and process. You've talked a little bit about some of the processes, the rituals that you can put in place, but also it's a reflection of how you build your design team and your design organization. Now, Yolanda, I have a confession to make is before I joined ClearScore and I came to work for you, I Googled you, right? Like everyone does it, but no one really admits to it. And I saw this talk that you did about building elite design teams.
Mm.
Talk to us a bit about how you approach building high-performing design teams. How do you think about it? What are some of the key things that people can, put in place to really turn up the performance of the design organization?
Well, I actually teach a class now on an MBA on the Future London Academy on designing or managing design elite design teams, and you have it with your 3D framework, right? One of the main things for an elite design team, the same that you have for an elite athlete team, right? Either be a basketball team or a football team or any kind of team, is discipline. That having a very good understanding of what is expected of everyone, and practicing that discipline hard every day, having very high expectations of what that work is supposed to be giving outcomes for, is very important. But also setting an environment of trust and setting that bedrock where people feel comfortable, where they feel safe to be able to kind of push the boundaries of the things they need to do. You don't want, discipline doesn't mean compliance. It doesn't mean bending the designers to what you want. All the opposite. What you need to do is create that discipline and those frameworks to liberate them, right? To liberate them from the noise and from the confusion, and be able to give them a very solid environment for them to be able to do whatever they want, and to feel like they can do whatever they want, and they can push the boundaries of design, of user experience, of research, of whatever they are doing to the limit. And that takes an awful amount of work. It doesn't happen immediately. I mean, you have seen it firsthand, the years that we have been working together. It takes a lot of work building that psychological safety on a team. Requires anything from career frameworks to transparent salary banding. So there are things that have nothing to do with the practice of design, and a lot to do with the human psychology and the safety of the individuals, right? For them to feel like they can push boundaries, and they do, they're not going to be punished for it, but they're going to be rewarded, and what that reward system looks like, and see it actually happen. Not only having those frameworks done and written, but actually practicing them, and for the whole team to see that you are practicing what you preach. And that is the main crux of it. And I can teach it to I've taught it now maybe 5 or 6 years, and I have explained everything from the temple framework to career pathing to how to actually hire incredible individuals, how to mix teams to make sure that the mix of your team is correct, making sure that you hire people from all of backgrounds to have that kind of soup of knowledge that enriches everyone. So there is so many variables to hiring and training and coaching elite design teams. But the most important one is always put your practice where your mouth is. And not only keep those frameworks on a beautiful Notion or a deck or whatever. It needs to be practiced, because otherwise immediately the individuals will realize that you're just words and no action, and will stop trusting. And when trust is lost in a team, that's it. Your quality is out, your design team starts to underperform, and is all fear and worry, and you cannot do elite work like this. So.
All right. So you've, Vanessa, I saw you like nodding a few times here. How do you set up your design teams? What sort of thing do you use to make sure that they are highly functioning and deliver performance?
Yeah, I think Yolanda's pretty much said everything, but I think I do want to focus in and zoom in. How you are as a leader really affects how the team is. And I think I really try and be transparent as a leader. Like, we can't always control everything, but I think that transparency builds trust within the team. I think also, being really realistic with the team. I think the other thing that I like to do is make sure that as a team we all feel like we've got skin in the kind of game. So I don't like to be a kind of dictator type leader of like, here's the goals, this is what we're doing, everyone do it. It's kind of like, how can we do this together? What do we want to be as a design team? So working with the team to almost shape how we want to be as a team and helping them create that. I think the other thing that I do quite a lot with my team is talk about their careers, be really realistic about that as well, because not all the time that it could happen within the organization, right? But it's like, how can I help you get to where you want to get to? And I don't think design leaders or even my previous managers really had those good, honest conversations about career. And I think just creating that sense of honesty and trust, like Yolanda said, is really, really important for happy, kind of high performing teams.
Okay, so a lot to do with people, bringing them onto the journey and kind of like crafting together this view of what do we want to achieve as a design team or functional organization, and then bringing your personality as a leader and who you are and your values is extremely important because that transmits to the team, and then being really transparent and candid around what does progression look like in this organization? Understand that sometimes the business is going through difficult financial times, and therefore, it's not the time to really talk about promotion and getting a 20% pay bump, right?
Mm.
That's part and parcel of working in businesses. Now, Peter, you've worked with many design leaders, you've supported many design teams. From your perspective, and I guess, you define one of your role as helping design teams do great design. What do you think are the, one or two things that you think are essential for design teams to perform really well?
The the empowerment that Vanessa already mentioned is good. The agreeing with other teams what the expectations of design are is important. Um, I describe my management style as a transparent shit umbrella. Do you know the concept? The concept of a shit umbrella is that you shield the team from shit. My umbrella is transparent. I show them the shit. I still shield them from it, but I explain why it's there and what effect it has sort of on them and outside. So I want to be like transparent. So Vanessa also mentioned transparency. Um, I want them to, but I want them to understand what the conditions are in which they are working. So this, like, why are we no longer working on project A? Well, that's because something else happened over there. That kind of transparency, including dealing with the fact that there is shit falling everywhere. Well, in some places, is a realistic thing that is necessary. Yeah, I'll stop there. Like I have examples of how design ops can make the conditions better, but that's like that's design.
Tell us about that. Tell us about that.
Well, so I was once made director of design of an in-house incubator. This was at ServiceNow, a large IT company, software workflow software, and they set up an in-house incubator with the idea that there would be radically different, innovative ideas that would at some point make it into the main platform and products. So unless they would spin out and go somewhere else, but the goal was sort of to direct them into the direction of the rest of the organization. I was director of design, and I realized that the rest of the organization had a nice design ops team with all kinds of services that my team was not made part of, because we were the guys in the garage, or our teams were the teams in the garages. So I worked hard on making sure that my teams would get similar support from the design ops team as the other teams, in terms of being allowed and included in design jams where we talked about next generation design patterns, in even receiving the design newsletter, being invited to the design all hands. My designers were not invited to the designer all hands because we were the guys in the garage. Budget negotiations, tooling, what else? Tracking projects, just supporting designers in being tracked, getting the type of review and attention that they need. That tool was installed for everyone else, but not for my designers. So I worked with the design ops team in making sure that my designers got support as well, which meant they were more effective, they were more efficient, they were empowered, they were also prepared for the move over to the main organization. They were using similar tools, they were using similar processes, so that once their startup graduated, and they became part of the rest of the organization, the change wasn't that big. So this is how I made sure that my teams were sort of set up for success.
Yeah.
And like they could still fail, like the product could fail in the market. They could fail to work together with their product manager or their tech lead and create crappy products that got bad reviews and they were killed. The products were killed, not the designers. Or put on other projects. That could still happen, but at least they were supported by design ops.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome, awesome. Really great example. Really great example. So let's switch it up a bit and let's talk about influence. So, in an organization, if you want to do great design work, you also need to be influential. You need to earn the trust of senior leaders and executive if you want, to have a chance of increasing the maturity of the design practice. Yola, you speak at your level, you speak to CEOs and CTOs and execs all the time. How do you go about influencing people, at that level? What are some of the tactics that you use, or do you have like a story that you can tell us around how you managed to influence someone to do something? There is the Karl Lagerfeld story. It's not technically influential, but it's a good
That was
reference.
not
It's a good
influential.
reference.
Well, the first part is how to influence people, is always a very interesting question, right? Because I guess every team of execs or every person is influenceable in a different way. But I have always found that seeding ideas and doing things in a kind of slow but steady way and showing like smaller wins of that big idea that you want is probably the most successful way I have found out to do it. There have been times in my career where I had to come to an exec team or a C-suite and present them something that it was urgent to be done. And the only way to do it effectively and shock the system is by showing the data, right? And that data could be many different things. It could be numbers, right? Like he did for Hearst in the Media OS project, where we just show the amazing amount of waste that we were generating, creating articles many times, copy pasting instead of just having a centralized content CMS and having one repository for content. So just showing the amount of content generated and wasted, and how inefficient everything was with real numbers work. Other times you show videos of users struggling, and that is a very good way of using shock tactics for influencing. But when you want like long-term deep change, sometimes you have to start small, and you have to, like in the pub, start talking about that one time when this thing worked, and then you talk with a different C-suite about a different angle from the same idea, and you plant the seeds in many different places. So when you finally come and do your presentation with your deck and your numbers and your very powerful idea, they already have it in their minds, and you see nodding around the table instead of just like, what is she talking about, right? Because I've made that mistake. I have gone to a C-suite team with a very kind of novel idea of platform thinking and platform design, and nobody understood what a platform was. They had never used that language. They were using different words for these things, and nobody had even thought about it. So it came like a massive iceberg in their faces, and it was like shock across. And my story about Lagerfeld was a completely different way of influencing. And the time, probably, there's 2 times where I have almost literally crap my pants in front of really senior people. And that was one when we were at Farfetch doing Store of the Future for Chanel, which is a notoriously old school brand, and they had never wanted to do e-commerce, and they didn't want to do anything modern, and then suddenly they were putting RFID tagging and interactive mirrors in Rue de Cambon in the headquarters of Chanel in Paris. And I had prepared all of this presentation with very clear, this is for the team I have been working with and talking to and planting seeds, and I had a plan, and I was very proud of my plan. And I entered the room, and Monsieur Karl Lagerfeld, very old and very frail, is sitting in the meeting room. And I think is one of the times in my career where I felt mute. The words were not coming. I didn't know what to say. He was judging everything I said. It was being translated to French. I mean, it was just like, it was horrible. But you kind of live through these, experiences, and you learn different tactics of influencing, and they work differently depending on the case that you're working on. Sometimes you need that kind of number shock. Sorry, this is really wrong, and we need to correct it immediately, and this is why. And sometimes you need that kind of, I put a seed here, I put a seed there, and there's a much more a kind of a strategic way of doing it. But in any of the cases, you need the data to back you up. So
so slow and steady, be a bit like Christopher Nolan, and kind of like, it's like the inception of an idea, slowly germinate, and then in 18 months you're like
not 18 months. You can do it in a couple of months if you're very good at taking people for walks and dropping things in meetings, sliding a deck that barely is noticeable, but is there. There is this kind of much more psychologically putting things into people's minds, starting to use the lexicon, and it because we did it for ClearScore, starting to use the word platform over and over. Although it was, the teams wanted to use a different language, we kept steadily using that word for that particular thing until everybody was talking about the platform. But it takes longer, but I think the changes are more profound when you use that kind of a slow and steady way of doing things.
Venessa, you speak to execs and your counterparts in your organization. I know you're a big fan of design PR also as another way of, influencing the rest of the organization. What have you learned, in the past few years around what it takes to be influential? Do you have any stories or tips that you can share on how to do that effectively.
Yeah, I definitely want to underline Yolanda's point around it starts with people, and it starts with really getting to know the people in your organization and your execs. My advice would be to aim to know the people in your organization as well as you know your users and your end users. So if you have to do a persona for them, do a persona, understand like what their motivations are, what their goals are, what makes them tick, the kind of language that they like to use. I think as design leaders internally, we're doing this. But even just writing down that as a practice is quite useful. And yeah, it's basically just speaking to a bunch of people, trying to understand what are their challenges, what are they thinking about. And I'll give you an example. So when I was at Kazoo, me and the head of product, we'd regularly have conversations with the different directors and stakeholders that we work with. And a lot of the time they'll tell us what they're thinking about and what initiatives they're thinking about working on. And I just start with a question. I'm just like, this is great. And a lot of the time the ideas come from a spreadsheet and basically crunching a bunch of numbers. But my question is always, well, how does the user feel about this? How will users react to this? Yes, this makes sense from crunching some numbers in a spreadsheet, but when we present this to the user, are they going to want to do this? Are they going to have appetite for this? And a lot of the time, what happens off the back of that is a research study, or an initiative to investigate it. So that's happened quite a few times. And off the back of that research study, we will actually find out more about our users, more about the proposition that they're proposing, but also what comes through that is other ideas. So off the back of, so essentially the commercial director wanted to look at more points for pickup and drop off of cars. I'm not going to go into too much detail. That's what you need to know. And essentially we did a research study on that, but also what are customers willing to pay for, or what would they pay for as services. One of the things we found out is they want really convenient areas to be able to pick up and drop off cars, but also they're not willing to stay all day in waiting for a car. So the idea of doing all day slots is not an idea that customers will go for, because people want to plan their day, right? So one, we kind of stopped that idea and said it's not going to work for our users. And what came off the back of that is more ideas, and they started exploring actually pick up and drop off in car parks, town centers, other kind of places that are easy for people to get to. So I think that's the power of like design leadership, but also the power of us as design leaders and design practitioners actually getting to know our stakeholders. And we don't have to have the answers. We should just ask questions and start with, actually, from a UX point of view or from a user perspective, what does this actually mean for the user? Because I think a lot of the time senior people actually forget that, because they're looking at spreadsheets, they're looking at commercials and things like that. And I see my role as actually just like, wait a minute, the users, customers, what do they think about this? How will this actually work? And just asking those questions, and then out of it comes something else and an opportunity for design.
Yeah. So starts with people. It start by asking questions and understanding, okay, what is it that you want to do here, and then bringing the lens of the users and say, okay, let's try and maybe de-risk this decision, or test some of the assumption around whether users will adopt it before we invest a lot of money in building it. So really trying to find the intersection of what users want and the commercial potential of the idea, and I guess also how much you would take in terms of investment to scale it and to build that. And so you mentioned, stakeholder mapping. Peter, you were nodding furiously about, understanding landscape of stakeholders. Any other ways you're thinking about influence or getting people to, buy into your ideas?
Yeah.
Apart from, of course, getting them to the Amsterdam UX cocktail party, right?
Well, um, it was sort of a party, but at Miro at some point the we had an ops team that was called Product Excellence. We were supporting both product management and design and research. And it was a product excellence team. We did not report, so I was part of that team. I did not report to the head of design. I reported to the head of product excellence, and they reported to the CPO. And the head of design also reported to the CPO, which meant we were independent. One of the responsibilities of the product excellence team was organizing events that build culture. And we started what I remember as a science fair, basically, where everyone who wanted got a table and could show a project, and preferably physical. So at some point, I actually ordered a white lab coat and safety glasses. They arrived too late, but still was my intention to actually show up as a scientist and show my projects, and which were like the currently running design ops initiatives, to show what design ops can do for the organization. And this was like a company-wide or Amsterdam-wide, which was like 1,500 people or something at that point, science fair, where everyone from the janitor to the CFO could show up, have a drink, walk around, see the projects that were being exposed, whatever, exposed, shown there, and have chats with the people. So I would chat about design ops and how we were supporting the design and product management team. So that was one way to at least maybe not directly gain influence, but definitely raise awareness. And you can influence the conversation in those moments. If somebody else talks about you, you have no idea how they talk about you. If you talk to the CFO about the role of design ops, you talk to them. So you build awareness and you control the narrative. Something else. So I also worked at IKEA. IKEA has a 10-person design ops team, another 10-person design system team, supporting about 300 designers, researchers, writers, and stuff like that, people like that. The head of design ops was sort of a fractional head of design ops. She was also supporting a couple of other leaders in other capacities. I don't know all of them, and it doesn't really matter, but through that sort of fractional role and fractional other roles, she found out what other teams needed. She could discuss the potential for design ops to be involved, and actually, also prioritize or reprioritize initiatives based on what she heard in those other conversations, in those other teams. So it was for the design and research ops team, it was beneficial that the head was sort of a fractional head and also had other responsibilities.
Yeah.
And gained influence and insights and opportunities to discuss what could be done.
Great. I guess your kind of like science fair that you describe is a bit similar in concept to Venessa, what you call design PR. I know you're quite passionate about design PR, Venessa. How do you do it in your organization? Well, what is it? How do you do it? How do you do it well?
So design PR is basically raising the profile of design and design team. So like for me, I like to go beyond the product team and engineering teams that we're working on, because I think design has the power to kind of help and influence every department, not just engineering and product. And it's not like a silver bullet. So it's a combination of things, and it really is a team effort. So I really encourage my team to do videos of projects that they've done, and then we can send that out. Design newsletters, I know Peter mentioned that earlier. So things like design newsletters, being a lot more collaborative in our approach to things. So bringing in other people when we're doing user testing, also communicating that user testing out as well. So we've spoken to some users, here's what we've learned about those customers, and sharing that widely. So not just in product and engineering, but actually throughout the business and the company. And then as a design leader, there's obviously a role that I have to play, and I'm going around speaking to all the stakeholders and really trying to understand, well, what are their challenges, what are they working on, and how I can help them. And it could be anything from helping them with some slides and a diagram, to actually, here's a piece of research that will support your strategy.
Yeah.
Or we can do some research on this and help you on this.
Yeah.
So it's always a different approach, but I think one thing, if anyone wants to start doing more design PR, you really kind of need to understand where you are in the business, how people think about design in the business as well. So if the design team is quite mature and everyone understands design and the power of design, then how you do design PR is different versus a company that, you know, we're just a design team in the corner and we just do some screens. That's a completely different approach to design PR, where there's a lot more education that needs to be done. There's a lot more, I guess, action on getting some buy-in. Whereas if you are a lot more mature, then it's just really like positioning the team in that more strategic space. So how can we gain more influence? How can we showcase how much more we can do from that strategic space and start influencing things like the company strategy and areas like that.
Yeah. Awesome. Really, really, really sound advice from you, Vanessa, you, Peter, and you, Yolanda. We're coming out of time. Let's do a quick round. Vanessa, where people can find you and follow you. I know you have a blog, and tell us what you're up to in the next, few weeks.
Yep. So LinkedIn is probably the best place to find me. I've also got a website where I've got a blog that I write all sorts of these types of thoughts. I'm also a speaker as well, so I'm always speaking somewhere. So definitely follow me on LinkedIn to find out where I am next. And yeah, thank you so much, Laurent, for having me on this panel. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you for joining, Peter.
LinkedIn.
Yeah, and you are running some workshops at UX Lisbon, right?
UX Lisbon doing a workshop and a talk, then UX Con in Vienna in October, workshop. I consult, so if people approach me and say, hey, I need help, I coach and I teach and I help and raise and create roadmaps and stuff like that.
And you're gonna do a workshop as part of my training course on Maven.
Yes, we're as part of your course, I'll do a bonus session on design ops roadmaps. I look forward to that as well.
Me too. And Yolanda, where can people find you? What are you up to these days?
Same thing. I'm in LinkedIn. Best place to probably, like Vanessa, to know what I'm doing and what I'm not. I will be speaking in June in Tech Week. I'm not sure in which slot yet, but I will be there. And same thing, I coach and I teach. I'm preparing right now a course for an MA in Kingston University next season. I haven't finished it yet, but it's coming. So yeah, just check on my LinkedIn to see where I am and what I'm doing.
Excellent. Thank you everyone for joining the panel. I hope you enjoyed it. The replay will be available on YouTube very shortly. And stay tuned because we're gonna have another one of these, and it's gonna be a US edition.
Ooh.
Dang.
So stay tuned. It's probably likely going to be beginning of June. In the meantime, I'm running a free event next week on the 3D framework. Speak soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. See you all.